Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. We've had so much going on this week. We haven't talked about the ridiculous fight between Sydney and Maria on this season of The Bachelor. Well, now Charity's calling out the producers for their lack of support when it comes to the lead, trying to figure out who's in the right, who's in the wrong. We've also got a clip from Joey, a clip from Maria, a clip from Sydney, and also Ashley Iconetti defending Sydney. Of course, they're friends. Do me a solid. Follow me on Instagram at DNeals. If you want to defend me, hit the like button. Don't forget, an odd number of times. And we've also got the afternoon podcast coming to you right after this Bachelor Rush Hour, where I'll discuss a little bit more about what's going on in all of entertainment news. So, of course, here's what Charity had to say. My favorite part of the show, Monday night, when the lead literally has to try to make sense of nonsense in the house with literally nothing to go off of but vibes and one conversation. Joey, you are smart. This is ridiculous. And then someone left a comment. So there's no guidance from the producers? You can't get a hand? She said, you know the answer to this. Laugh. And of course it is frustrating, but that's how it works. So Maria commented after all the beef started going down, saying emotions are high, but please stay positive and kind to everybody involved. So Maria offering, her communication skills are great. I've obviously been a fan of her from the first several episodes of the show, but it's a pretty obvious reason why. She tries to quell all of the drama, quash it even, squash the quash, and Sydney, and here's what I heard behind the scenes. I heard from a source that Maria actually apologized to Sydney before Sydney brought the disturbance to Joey. So not only was Maria pretty much misunderstood, Sydney wasn't even there on the conversation. She just heard her talking from across the hall. Sydney decides to pick a fight with Maria and tattletale to Joey. It'll lead to a 2-on-1 date, but it's absolutely ridiculous. So the audience was polled on this. Hey, whose side are you on? 2,300 people said Maria. 39 said Sydney. So either you're on Maria's side or you're related to Sydney. It's really none of the other. So 2,300, that's a lot. That's a full gigantic theater verse of people that are on Maria's side. And 39 would be about the amount of people that would be in the orchestra pit. So not looking good for Sydney. Well, Ashley is one of the people on her side. Ashley Iconetti said, please be kind to our friend Sydney. Sometimes you just have to have been there to understand why people made the moves they did. And I find it interesting from Ashley to call it a move. So it was a move by Sydney, who might not have been getting much attention on night one, might have been promised by producers. The only way you're going to talk to Joey is if you ruffle feathers or this or that. We don't know for sure why Sydney decided to come after Maria, considering that Sydney wasn't the initial person in the beef, right? They already had a little bit of, target on Maria's back, her shirtless back, as she made a outfit change the previous episode. So maybe they saw Maria as a threat, and trust me, Maria is a threat. So she has had her audience grow rapidly. Actually, I believe one of the biggest growths of the season so far, based on how she has portrayed herself on the season, whereas Sydney, and again, popularity contest doesn't tell anything, but Sydney hasn't even cracked 10K. Okay, so whether or not it worked for Sydney, there's a real sort of dilemma you have when you're on the show. Will I play into what the Bachelor producers want in the hopes that maybe it'll get me on Paradise or maybe it'll get me a storyline, or do you stay authentic to yourself? Here's where it gets a little crazy. So let's say Sydney was just playing it up for the cameras, this and that. She just wanted to, play the villain, but that's not the case because she takes to her Instagram and talks about gaslighting. Have a listen.
About gaslighting. Now, if you watch The Bachelor, you might see it in the most previous episode. So for those of you who don't know what gaslighting is, it is a form of psychological manipulation where an abuser is trying to cause self-doubt and confusion in one's mind. Gaslighters tend to seek control by gaining power,
and people are flabbergasted by her posting this because it's almost like we watched her gaslight the audience and gaslight Maria and Joey, because Maria did nothing but try to de-escalate the situation. Here's what's interesting. And again, Could it just be the edit that we're seeing? Possibly. But to have the audacity and the nerve to come forward and sort of explain gaslighting to other people, gaslight-splaining. Amanda said this, listen, I'm sure you're a lovely person deep down, but please, for your mental health, delete this. You do not get to be some sort of advocate for gaslighting after the way you gaslighted Maria, unless you're posting your performance on last night's episode as an example of what gaslighting and lack of self-awareness looks like. Others have even compared Sydney to Jane Doe for the lack of sort of awareness and delusion about what the hell's actually going on. Now, I'm not going to get into any of the physical insults. There's always going to be insults here from people, but I think this is very interesting to see her just come out and say, yeah, you got to witness gaslighting, because the editors are like, really? That's not what we put together.
Do so by distorting their reality so that the victim is forced to question their own judgment and intuition. Now I'm going to tell you 3 examples of gaslighting, and sometimes the gaslighter might use all 3 in this order.
She sounds so know-it-all. Now I'm going to tell you 3 examples. Sydney, come on. Look, hey, I'm from Newport, Rhode Island. I thought we'd have something to bond about here, but, oh, and by the way, I reserve grace for maybe seeing a different side of Sydney come out afterwards. But like we said, this is where I get kind of lost. I watch the show and then I have grace and I say, maybe it was a bad edit. Maybe they were hungry. Maybe they had drank too much. And then she puts this together. So it really just makes me confused.
Number 1, denying that something ever happened. Now, an example of that could be somebody who said they never said something. Oh, I never said that. How dare you? How could I ever say that? That's something that is so against my character. That then makes the victim think, wait, really? Maybe I heard it wrong.
And then we, of course, saw Maria as the victim be like, I thought they would have liked me. She starts to get real confused. The comments are brutal. You'll probably be single for a while. Oh, that's mean. Someone said you're seriously trying to gaslight millions of people and it's not working. So either way, that's what we have on that. Joey, of course, under fire for different reasons. We'll jump into it real quickly. Actually, let's save Joey for a minute here. But we have Jesse Palmer actually doing a big no comment. What a Canadian move by Jesse Palmer. So Entertainment Weekly asked him questions. Joey was upset to learn that Medina felt like she was being bullied last week, but Medina chose not to reveal who made her feel that way. It was so refreshing that she took the high road rather than naming names. Why do you think more contestants don't take that route when they have conflicts with each other? Jesse said, I think some people get caught up, but I was really impressed with Medina's maturity and composure in that situation. Again, what? At what point was Medina bullied at all? And then the question was Team Sydney or Team Maria? And Jesse Palmer goes, I'm going to stay neutral on this one. It's tricky to pick sides because the conflict between Sydney and Maria is based mostly on their own personal experiences. Look, I understand Jesse not wanting to take sides. Contractually, he's probably not allowed to. But holy heck, this was wild. So there's articles that have already come out that show Bachelor Sydney slammed for gaslighting rant. Again, gaslighting's a heavy accusation to make on somebody. So it's pretty wild that she was actually on the offensive. She was like, maybe if I get this gaslighting story out before the episode, it'll serve its purpose. Because this gaslighting, this came out, I think, before Monday night's episode. So very wild stuff. And a lot of times, someone said, I know you were trying to stand up for your friend, but there's a difference of standing up for your friend and bullying. You weren't there to hear the entire conversation. So yeah, that a lot of times bullying, especially on The Bachelor, is disguised as sticking up for your friend. So it's usually the person who didn't even have the thing, put on them. Like Maria never said anything to Sydney. To give Sydney credit, maybe she didn't know exactly what Maria said and she took it the wrong way. I don't know, folks. It's pretty wild. All right. In other wild news, let's do a palate cleanser here. We've got Joey on Betches. They asked him who this person is. Now, I don't know about you guys, but it's Gypsy Rose. I wouldn't have known that a month ago, but that's who it is. But he actually has a very embarrassing faux pas. Have a listen.
Is it Ruth? No. Is Ginsburg, something like that? Am I wrong? I know that she had something happen where she went to jail because of her mom.
Gypsy Rose.
Ruth Ginsburg. I don't know what I'm saying. Wrong.
Do you know who this person is?
So he thought that Gypsy Rose was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, RBG, you know me, the late, once great Supreme Court Justice, whom you could argue lost part of her legacy because she didn't retire when she should have, therefore dying in the wrong president's hand. Not physically, but when you vacate, when the position's vacated in the Supreme Court, then the president gets to nominate a Supreme Court justice. So Ruth Bader Ginsburg again did a lot of good things, but in the end didn't necessarily ride off into the sunset. All right, let me know what you think about that. Maybe that's an argument. Can you imagine if that's the takeaway from this video? Either way, Joey commented, she looked like a Ruth, and the only Ruth I had in my head was the late Supreme Court justice. I'll never live this one down. He's like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Babe Ruth. Baby Ruth, the chocolate bar. She does look like a Ruth. She looks like a Ruth. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Charity calls out producers. What side are you on? I mean, is it even a fair fight? It seems like we're all Team Maria where I come from. And we'll have more content for you right after the break.